Wildlife, as we all know, is pretty incredible. There are some animals that can not only survive, but thrive in bustling urban centers. It's pretty amazing to see. Now, of course, human and wildlife conflicts do happen, so what we're covering today in our education video is what we refer to as nuisance wildlife. Now, it should be important to note that none of these animals are nuisances. They're simply trying to survive in an ever-changing human-controlled world. By doing education videos like this, we hope that we can do away with some of that stigma and teach you how to live alongside these animals happily and healthily. The first animal I want to touch on are raccoons. These are a common backyard animal in pretty much every single state in the nation. These animals are incredibly intelligent. We have a resident raccoon here in New Mexico Wildlife Center who is a non-releasable raccoon. His name is Pepper. We make Pepper enrichment every single day. We give him lots of new things to interact with and play with in order to get his food. It helps to keep his brain happy. And we think that we're making super clever enrichment. It's gonna take him like 30 minutes to figure it out. He's got it figured out within a couple of minutes. We're maybe not as clever as we think. But these animals are really adaptable and smart. What that means is that they've learned in these human-developed areas, there's food and there's no predators. It's a pretty sweet deal until they are caught digging through our garbage or getting into some kind of other trouble. The best thing to do to keep pretty much any of the animals we're going to be talking about away from your property is to remove the resources. In the case of raccoons, they're often known as trash pandas, as we all know, but the best thing to do is to keep your trash locked, either with a animal-proof trash can or keeping it locked in a garage or some other safe space where they can't get into, because raccoons are not the only animals known for digging through garbage. Here in New Mexico and also across a large part of the western part of the United States, we also have black bears. Black bears, like raccoons, are also very clever, but they are not quite as common in urban environments. You will often see them on what is referred to as an edge habitat, which can be the difference between a grassland habitat and a forest, but can also be the interface between human development and more wild territory. Black bears are another animal commonly known for digging through garbage, but they're also often seen eating off of people's bird feeders. The best thing to do to keep these rascals out of your yard is to bring your bird feeders inside, and it's also a really good idea if you have any small pets to bring them inside too, because they are not only in danger from raccoons and bears, but also things like birds of prey and other things like that, so it is best to bring them inside where it is safe. So the third animal I want to be covering are skunks. These are, again, a very common backyard animal. I live in the middle of downtown Santa Fe, and I've seen them walking around in my yard. These animals, of course, have that incredible defense mechanism. Even the bravest among us is not going to tussle with a skunk if we can help it. Just like with the last two animals we talked about, the easiest way to keep them away is to take away your resources. People that have outdoor cats will often leave their cat food out at night, and skunks love dry cat food. So keeping not only dry cat food, but also dry dog food inside at night is an easy way to get these animals to go away. Skunks are also denning animals, so when they have their young, they find a safe enclosed space where they can keep their young safe while mom goes out to forage. You can often find skunks hiding underneath sheds, in garages, and underneath houses if you're on a foundation. Again, easiest way to keep them out is to remove the entrances to block them off. But before you block them off, especially in the spring when they're having their young, check underneath. Make sure there aren't any babies down there already, because if you lock them in, you're gonna have a really angry mama skunk on your hands, and that's the last thing that any of us want. Another trick we often give to people if they've got skunks hanging around is you can take a rag, soak it in straight ammonium, and dab it around the edges of your foundation, your shed, your garage, what have you, and that will often deter skunks. There is some kind of if and buts about it, but from what I've seen, it works pretty well. The last animal on our list of nuisance wildlife is a reptile, and a reptile that is often seen as really scary, and something to be fearful of and dangerous. Those are rattlesnakes. Now, we've covered rattlesnakes both on our Facebook Live and in one of these education videos, so if you want to learn more, I definitely suggest you check them out. These animals are simply living alongside us. They should not be faced with fear, but respect. If you've got a rattlesnake in your yard, these animals are mostly rodent hunters, so it's most likely if a rattlesnake is hanging around, there are rodents hanging around. So the best way to prevent things like rattlesnakes from being on your property is to reduce the amount of resources for rodents. It's kind of a backward circle, but the less rodents like mice and rats and things like that you have on your property, the less likely it is that snakes like this are going to show up. Now these animals are reptiles. They're going to seek out shelter, they're going to seek out warm places. So keeping the brush trimmed down is an easy way to see them instead of them sneaking up on you and scaring you. Another thing is they like to hang out in wood piles. So the best thing to do is keep your wood piles really well organized and check them pretty often to make sure that there aren't rattlesnakes or other critters in there that could potentially be dangerous to themselves or others. Again, rattlesnakes are not here to hurt us. The rattle that they use is simply a warning. It means back off. They're not going to strike if you walk by. They're going to warn you first. Again, if you want to learn more, please check out our education video if you want to learn more about rattlesnakes. It is incredibly important to remember that we share space with these animals. This is their ecosystem too. No matter how big or how small an animal is, it is part of a really important system of life on our planet, both locally and globally. We do not recommend removing pest animals from your yard. The kind of analogy that we use is, imagine if I took you and I stuck you in a box and I shipped you to Cambodia. Kind of an extreme example, but it gives you an idea of what it would feel like for that animal to be completely removed from its home habitat and stuck somewhere completely different. A lot of animals too are smart enough to find their way back home, and they may just end up back on your yard again. So we do not recommend trapping these animals and moving them because it can often be detrimental on a larger scale. Of course, before you try any of these deterrent methods that I've mentioned in this education video, we highly recommend you call New Mexico Wildlife Center or your closest licensed wildlife rehab center before you try anything. Each animal is an individual, each situation is different, and we always like to know more before we move along with any kind of deterrent methods. Thank you as always for watching. I really hope you learned something new about some of the less than wanted visitors to your yard potentially. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to contact us right here at New Mexico Wildlife Center. Tune in next week for our next education video. Until then, be safe, healthy, and well. We'll see you around. Bye. Aren't nuisances. They're simply trying to survive in a world often controlled by humans. I don't like that. Nope. Of course, though, animals... But just like with the raccoon we've already talked about and the bears, the best way... Cibola. Every time. Live and in one of these education videos, so we definitely just consider... mentioned in this video, please contact New Mexico Wildlife. There's an ant on me.